Story 1. My boyfriend thinks love equals unlimited loans. But he's a traditional man when it suits him. So I, 21F, have been dating my boyfriend, 22M, for a while now. We're both Nigerian, and during our relationship, I've supported him a lot, financially, emotionally, and otherwise. Let me paint the picture of how one-sided this has become. For his birthday, I gave him £400 to help buy a PS5. Yes, I paid for the majority of it. A short while later, he crashed his mum's car, and I gave him another £200 to help out. He promised to pay it back. That was months ago. Still nothing. Now, my birthday comes around. He gave me a dry happy birthday text. That's it. I had told him not to get me flowers because I love flowers and would have preferred a gift that actually lasted. Apparently, he translated that as, do absolutely nothing. In fairness, he once bought me some chocolates, snacks, and flowers. He's also paid for hotel rooms a few times when I visited Nigeria. But let's be real, the cost of those hotels was like £10 total when converted. Meanwhile, I've spent hundreds, if not more. Every time I travelled back and forth between Nigeria and the UK, I brought him something, without being asked, even when I had little to spare. Now here's where it gets extra ridiculous. The other day, he calls me rambling about some new business idea, and then asks me to fund it. I told him no, calmly, and with reasons. He still owes me £200. Every time I bring up money, he gets emotional and defensive, as if I'm attacking him for expecting basic respect and accountability. I'm quitting my job soon, need a car, and I'm moving cities for my postgrad. I need to look after myself right now. But now, suddenly I don't love him, and I'm abandoning him at his lowest point. He's cold, throwing out passive-aggressive comments, and acting like I've betrayed him. What really blows my mind is this. He's one of those traditional men who constantly preaches about how men are supposed to be the providers. So, why am I the one providing for him? Where does that logic even stand? And to make things worse, he's always bragging about how much money he has, always flexing like he's got it all together. So, why can't he use that money for his business instead of guilt-tripping me for mine? Story 2. It's not fair because you're naturally good at it. A few months ago, I joined a local photography club. It's just a bunch of hobbyists who meet up once a week, go on photo walks, and occasionally submit our shots for friendly themed contests. There's no money involved, just bragging rights and some fun. There's this one member, Tara, who's been in the group for years. She talks constantly about how she's basically semi-pro, name drops her expensive gear, and casually mentions how her photos have been recognized, but she never specifies by whom. She's good, no doubt, but she's also clearly used to being the one who gets all the compliments. I've only been doing photography seriously for about a year, but I've been putting in a lot of time learning, practicing, and editing. I use a basic mirrorless camera and edit on my phone. It's nothing fancy. Last month, the group theme was reflections. I submitted a photo I took at a local lake that featured a canoe, morning fog, and still water. It was a pretty peaceful shot. People really liked it, and it ended up getting chosen as the top pick for the week. At first, Tara didn't say anything. But at the next meeting, I overheard her telling someone, it's just beginner's luck. Some people get praised early on but fizzle out. Plus, it's not fair because he has an eye for it. I've worked on my skills. Later, she told me directly, honestly, you're just naturally good at this. Some of us actually had to learn the technique. I replied, I've been practicing too, Tara. I didn't just pick up a camera and get lucky. She rolled her eyes and said, whatever. Just saying, I wish people valued the effort behind the shot, not just the vibe. I didn't say much after that, but it really stuck with me. Somehow, she was mad that I did well without her expensive gear or level of self-declared experience. It felt like doing better than her meant I cheated the system. It's funny how some people think they're being real when they're just being entitled. Story 3. Entitled neighbor demands I stop using my own Wi-Fi because it's distracting her plants. I live in a townhouse complex with paper-thin walls and a whole bunch of colorful personalities. One of them is my neighbor, a woman in her late 50s who wears tie-dye every day, insists she has a telepathic connection with crystals, and once told me my aura was too digital. I'm usually sitting out front on my phone with my computer relaxing. I suppose that's why she feels I'm too digital. But her latest stunt truly took the cake. Last week she knocked on my door holding a small potted plant in one hand and a printout of what looked like a hand-drawn diagram of a Wi-Fi signal in the other. She told me we needed to talk about my router. I was confused. She then explained that my Wi-Fi was disrupting the vibrational energy of her succulents. She pointed to the drawing, which honestly looked like a sad jellyfish, and said the signal beamed directly through our shared wall and bombarded her plants non-stop. According to her, the plants were spiritually wilting because they thought the Wi-Fi was sunlight, but it wasn't. The best part. Her plants were in a dark hallway with no natural light. She claimed they had been fine until I got a new modem and then gave me two options: either turn off my Wi-Fi every night between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., apparently the plant rest hours, or let her share my Wi-Fi and move the router into her unit so she could regulate the signal properly. I laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. She stormed off as I was laughing at her. I'm still currently waiting to see what comes out of this. Story 4. Entitled woman wants my takeout order because she is in a hurry. I stopped by a local Thai spot to pick up a takeout order I'd called in about 25 minutes earlier. I get there, give my name, and the guy at the counter says, "Yep, just finishing it up, it'll be out in a minute." No problem. Then this woman who came in after me marches up to the counter and says loudly, "I need that order. I'm in a rush." The cashier calmly tells her that it's already taken. She turns and points at me and goes, "He looks like he can wait. I've got kids in the car." I kind of laugh, thinking it's a joke. It is not. She then says to me directly, "Come on, be kind, just let me take your food. You can wait for the next one." I say, I ordered this 30 minutes ago and I'm taking it home to my family too." Then she actually tries to walk behind the counter to grab the bag that just came up. The cashier has to block her and say, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave if you don't calm down." She storms out muttering about how selfish people are and how this is why the world's falling apart. I was so shocked. World falling apart over takeout. Story 5. Neighbor demands that my colleague calls me so I can come home from my night out early to let him back into the building. So I've never posted on this sub before, but this is something that happened to me the other week. I was on a night out seeing Rocky Horror on stage. I check my phone during the intermission and see all of these texts from my friend at work. While I had been away watching the show, my next door neighbor had come into the store I work at. My workplace is just around the corner from where I live, and it's a very local store, so my neighbor knew that I worked there. He was very drunk and had lost his keys and locked himself out of the building. We live in the same apartment building, and his front door is next to mine. He asked my colleague to call me so I could come back home to let him in with my key. I obviously don't have the key to his apartment, but the front door to the building locks automatically behind you, so I'd have the key to get back into the main building. My colleague told him that I was out in the city center that night, and he didn't know when I'd be back, but he will send me a text message. My neighbor evidently thought this wasn't good enough, and decided to scream at my colleague that he didn't believe that he had sent me the text. My colleague then proceeded to show him the proof that he had sent me the message. But this dude was seriously expecting me to come home early from the show I paid to see, just to let him in the building because he was stupid enough to lose the key. Just for the record, I wouldn't have let him borrow my keys even if I was at work, because one of the first things he said to me when I found out he was my neighbor was, "I knew it was you the moment you moved in, because I recognized you based on the way your keys sounded." That is the single creepiest sentence I've ever heard a man say to me, and I've been stalked before. No, I will not be ending my night out early to let you in. I also want to make sure that you stay as far away from me as humanly possible. Story 6. It's my fault she didn't get the job. My husband is a manager at a certain large chain store, won't say where. They were looking for new staff and I mentioned it to a friend who was looking for work and is always complaining about how she is struggling with money. My husband said he could get her a first interview, but she would have to earn any further progress herself the same as all the other candidates. A second interview before getting the job. I felt this was fair. Nothing is just handed to you in life and you should have to work for it. I told my friend exactly what my husband said. Her reply, "Well, what's the point in that when he could just give me the job if he wanted to? That's a waste of my time. Don't you think I have better things to do? I thought you guys were trying to help me out here." Needless to say, she didn't send in her information for the first interview and then had the audacity to tell a mutual friend that I'm not the type of friend who can be trusted to have your back during tough times, and I obviously don't want anyone to do better than me in life, so I hold everyone around me down. Is this girl for real? The entitlement is unreal. How dare I expect her to earn something like everyone else and not just hand her everything she needs? Story 7. Neighbors sending their relatives to my house to try to use my pool without my consent. Do not judge my paragraph formatting, please. Everyone has their own structure of writing, so don't be quick to judge or think it AI. Edited for some parts one forgot to include. For those commenting call the police read this whole post, the trespassers got arrested and got dealt with. The front of my driveway has a sign that reads private property no trespassing as you pull up to the driveway. I have a fence up around my pool to keep out unwanted animals and intruders with only way in is a key to unlock the gate. I have security cameras on certain places of the house pointing to the pool. Last summer while I was away my phone alerted me my security camera had caught something and so I checked to see the live footage. It was 3 teens that were in early teens and 1 adult trying to climb the fence to my pool. I have a top over my pool at all times which can only be removed from a switch in my house. You'd think they'd see the top and leave. I immediately called the police and they told me they'd take care of it. The 4 didn't even attempt to leave, they kept trying to climb the fence. I watched as the 4 were arrested. The day I get home my neighbor who must have been watching for my car storms over and starts screaming at me, "My sister and her kids are going to have a criminal record now because of you." I said, "So that's who my cameras detected. You should know my sign in front of my house says private property no trespassing." She says she'll see me in court when their court dates come up. The sister of the neighbor plead in court it was a hot summer day and they wanted to cool down so her sister insisted that they go use my pool but to ignore the sign that said private property because her sister and I are good friends. My neighbor and I are not good friends. I explained to the judges I did not give consent for neighbor to use my pool while I was gone. The judges saw all the evidence needed especially of the sign in my driveway saying no trespassing and found the neighbor and her sister guilty of second-degree trespassing which in my state carries the punishment of $200 fine and 20 days in jail. The judge found the 2 nephews and niece guilty as well. My lawyers requested a restraining order which was granted as well. The teen's lawyer tried to explain the teens didn't know about the sign in my driveway but the judge dismissed that because they willingly listened to their mother and aunt it was okay to trespass. Story 8. You're going to pick me for that position. At my job for a gym I work for I recently was informed by my boss I have a say in who I would like to see be promoted to second lead trainer since I'm the first lead trainer. Boss gave me the 3 in the running for the job position. 1 is a fellow training who has been with the gym 15 years and was the first work friend I made when I began working at the company 10 years ago. The second is another trainer who began the year after me and the last trainer began a year after the second was hired. All 3 have had amazing successes and accomplishments throughout their careers, but only 1 can have the position of second lead trainer. The co-worker who is my friend both at work and out of work told me she has nothing to say to sway me about my decision and she knows I'll be making the best choice for the gym. The second trainer, he's good and all but he's a bit of a musclehead who thinks he's like the strongest guy at the gym. The third choice is another guy but he tends to be into the gossip of the clients he trains and gets too much into it. Choice 2 has been acting very entitled looking at me like to say, "Together we can be both Hulk and She-Hulk of this gym." She-Hulk is my nickname at work because of my bodybuild appearance. The third choice is acting like he's entitled and has been giving me the latest gossip he heard which I tell him I don't need any gossip in my life. Today a day ahead of the announcement of who was picked I had passed in my report on all 3 and I feel I made the wisest choice. It was announced during lunch that my friend was picked. The 2 who didn't get picked they just gave me the ugliest stink eye of what did my report have to say about them. They walked past me while in the employee area back to their offices saying that either of them were more entitled than the one picked. Have you ever been in a position where you were given such a task by your boss? Of the 3 I've never seen the 2 not picked act so entitled. Story 9. She wanted my seat even though there was another. I showed up late to an event and most of the seats were already taken. Luckily, I spotted 2 empty ones side by side and sat in one. About 15 minutes in, a woman tapped me hard to tell me I was in her seat. There was nothing to suggest it was taken. No jacket, no bag, nothing, just 2 empty seats. I pointed to the other one next to me and told her the other one was still free. She looked at it, then back at me, and insisted that she had been sitting in the one I was in. While she was standing there arguing, someone else walked by and casually took the other empty seat. She saw it happen and didn't say a word to them. She just turned back and walked out angrily. I didn't see her again. Still not sure what her logic was. Story 10. My sister thinks my baby is hers as well. I'm expecting my first baby. I'm currently 28.5 weeks. When my husband and I found out, only our parents knew exclusively. Everyone else was to find out after the first trimester was over. BC us being first-time parents just wanted to be extra careful and we are also a reserved couple. My sister, who is older than me, was furious that I didn't tell her right away but she didn't tell me this herself nor showed it. I heard it from my mom. She believed that as the oldest she must know first too. It wasn't until we went out for a sister breakfast date with my other sisters that she kept saying so and so think you're pregnant, or it's been a year already that you got married, PPL want to know if you're pregnant yet, etc. I know what she was doing and I just told her then and there, yes I'm pregnant, shrug, light skin tone emoji modifier #hash. Since then, she would keep asking how's my baby? Or how is our baby? And she says it in front my husband too, confused face. It frustrates both of us, BC, we are pretty sure what she's thinking behind that. Both, my husband and I have told her already to stop saying that. It's weird and it's literally oh why my husband's and I. Gosh, I feel awful sounding like I'm fighting for ownership for my child. Anyways, she said it again a few days ago and I played it off by saying oh Jack? Hess fine. Jack is our doggy. She kept pushing, I kept playing it off until she said how's your alien then? I really didn't like that. It sounded really awful. I simply told her I have no aliens at home. A few weeks before that she asked in front of my little sisters and my husband how's our baby? I said our. No, has mine. She still had the audacity to argue about it saying well the baby is going to be AX baby, BCX is our last name. I told her nope, as a matter of fact, he's only going to have his dad's last name. I'm also changing my last name to my husband's. She got mad and in a mocking tone she said oh I'm sorry, since your husband is from a different nationality so are you guys her?
Ojo, get it.
WTFFF? She took it to that. I just distracted myself with something else and my little sister that was there even had a WTF is going on expression. A little backstory, my older sister does hold some sort of entitlement as she's used to PPL kissing her feet. Heck, even I did but realized it eventually. When I was single I helped raise her first child but even still I didn't call him mine. That's just so weird and bitchy to me. IDK, how else to tell her to stop calling my baby hers? I'm sure she also says it to frustrate my husband as she loves to throw indirects at him purely out of envy or fun.